Hello, welcome to another instructional video from ArcGIS Associates. In our last video, we asked for suggestions for new content, other videos y'all would like to learn about. And one of those suggestions was how do we import things we've created in ArcMap, those map document files, into ArcGIS Pro. So we figured we'd take that suggestion and go ahead and turn it into a new video. So that's what we'll be looking at here. How do I take specifically those ArcMap MXD files and import those into an ArcGIS Pro project? So what we hope to accomplish here in this video is first, give you a comparison between the ArcMap MXD to the ArcGIS Pro projects. Make sure you understand the differences between the two, the commonality between the two, and what does it take, right, to bring those in. And then we'll look at the actual workflows required to import the MXD into an ArcGIS Pro project. So it is important, if you're going to be looking at bringing in things that you've created in ArcMap into ArcGIS Pro, to recognize some differences between those, some terminology and things of that nature. So if we look at ArcMap, if you have used ArcMap in the past, then you know that it organizes things in map documents, which have an MXD file extension. So in those map documents, we're going to find our layouts, our maps, be able to export to other file types such as layer files, layer packages, and map packages, and those kind of things. ArcGIS Pro does things a little bit differently. In place of map documents, we're going to use project files, which have an APRX file extension. We can also create layer files, but they're going to have a different file extension. They're going to have an LYRX file extension. We can also create map files, which is something we cannot do from ArcMap, because that would basically be the MXD. So that would be a MapX extension on that map file. We can create layout files, which have PAGX file extensions, so that could be used as a layout template for adding additional layouts into our project. We can also create different packages. We have layer and map packages, very similar in concept to the packages we create in ArcMap, but again, they're going to have an X at the end of the file extension, and you'll find that true, as you can probably notice here with most of the files we create in Arc Pro. And then project packages, PPKX files. And that's, again, just like a package, it's going to bundle everything that's part of the package into that single file. Okay. Now, if we take a little bit of a closer look at the difference between an MXD, that map document file that we create in ArcMap, versus a project file that we create in ArcGIS Pro, there are a couple of things that we need to note. So first off, the MXD can technically support multiple maps, but we call those data frames as opposed to maps. In ArcGIS Pro, we call them maps, and Pro supports both 2D and 3D maps, whereas ArcMap just supports 2D. Also within an ArcMap MXD, we can only have a single layout. So that single print layout with the title block, north arrows, all those kind of things. The MXD has one. Whereas a project file in ArcGIS Pro can have multiple layouts. There really is no limit, at least as far as I know, to the number of total layouts that you can have in a single project file for ArcGIS Pro. Another big difference is that an MXD in ArcMap will support layers that reference back to a personal geodatabase. So a personal geodatabase is a storage format created by Esri that's built on the Microsoft Access platform. ArcGIS Pro doesn't support those anymore. So if you have any MXDs that reference back to a personal geodatabase, if you try to import those into ArcGIS Pro, you might run into some problems. Both of them support shapefiles as well as file geodatabases, SDE geodatabases. So you shouldn't have any problem if you use those when you import that MXD from ArcMap into ArcGIS Pro. So let's jump in and take a look at how do we do that? How do we take an MXD that we have in ArcMap and import it into ArcGIS Pro, and when we do import it, what does it look like? How does it come across? So we'll take a look at that now. Okay, so here we have a map that is in ArcMap. So this is the older software that we've used for many, many years. You can see that this MXD file contains two data frames. We have a general data frame and a UNA continuing studies detail data frame. And this is shown up here in the layout view within ArcMap. So the center main view area here, that references back to the UNA continuing studies detail data frame. And the one up here in the upper left-hand corner references the general data frame. Okay. So you can see those. We also have our legend. We have a title. We have a logo, a disclaimer text here in the layout. Also notice that we have some graphics here in the main data frame here. If we go into data view, make sure the UNA Continuing Studies Detail data frame is the active data frame that we're looking at here. You can see that this point and the UNA East Campus and Continuing Studies Center text, this is graphics. And I know that because if I go to my Select Elements tool here, I can grab that graphic and move it. Okay. Same with the annotation here. If the point was a feature in a layer, the Select Element tools wouldn't work to select it. And if this text was either a label, as the road names are, or a geodatabase annotation, then the Select Elements tool wouldn't select that either. So I know that this is a graphic, and the text here is what we call map annotation. This is important because when you try to import into ArcGIS Pro, at least up to version 2.1, graphics in the map view or the data view and graphic text or map annotation is not supported in ArcGIS Pro. Like I said, up to version 2.1. Now, in the future, they may change that. Who knows? What I wanted you to do, or what I wanted you to see, is what does this look like in ArcMap? Right? How does this map look like before we import it into ArcGIS Pro, so you can kind of see what you would expect if you were to run such a conversion. So now I'm going to go into ArcGIS Pro. I already have a project open that I've created earlier. You can see here I'm looking in the catalog view. I've got a bunch of different maps. There's a 2D map, a 3D map, a base map, and several others. There's another 3D map in here. You can also see over here in the catalog pane that I have multiple layouts. This particular project currently has 4 layouts within it. So now if I want to bring in the data or the maps from that MXD, it's very simple to do. I can do it a couple of different ways, and that's not unusual with ArcPro. There's usually at least 2 ways to do anything. One is I can go up to the Insert tab in the ribbon and choose Import Map, or I can go over here in the Catalog pane and where it says Maps here, right-click and Import. It accesses the same tool. It doesn't really matter which one you use, so I'm just going to click Import here. Now I'm going to go find that MXD that I have. That was the UNA MXD, so it's under Alabama. And there's the MXD we were looking at in ArcMap, so I'm now going to click OK. But before I do that, make sure, go ahead and take a look. You'll notice the maps that are over here in the project currently, and the layouts that are currently over here. And now I click OK. And now you can see it has imported that MXD into my project. And if you look over here under the Maps folder in the Catalog pane, you'll see that it brought in there's the general data frame is now a map inside of my project. So the data frames equal maps. There's also the UNA Continuing Studies Detail map that was once a data frame in the MXD we were looking at. So each one of those data frames is now a separate map within my project. And it even imported my layout. There's the UNA layout. You can see there's my legend. There were where the two data frames were. I got my logo. So it comes in pretty close to what we were looking at in ArcMap. You may need to resize a couple things like this legend. Anytime you see those three dots in the brackets, that means it needs more room to display everything. So I can adjust it a little bit there, and now it's big enough and everything that was in the legend is showing up. Still, it even brought in the extent rectangle, right? So you see that up here identifying the area in this map that is displayed in this map here. So if I were to pan and zoom here, it would update and change that there with that extent rectangle, which we also had. If I go back to ArcMap, you can see there's the extent rectangle there. One thing you should notice is missing is this, right? So this graphical map annotation and point that showed where the Continuing Studies Center was located at did not translate over here into ArcGIS Pro. Again, because at least up to version 2.1, that is not supported. Now you've seen how we can bring those in. Said we've got the two data frames became maps, right? The general data frame, UNA Continuing Studies detail data frame are all now maps. It also imported the layout with it. And again, so if you notice here, a single project can contain multiple maps. They don't even have to be necessarily related to the same location, because I brought in from Alabama. I've got stuff for Union City, which is in the metro Atlanta area in Georgia. I've got other things. So a project can contain data from all over the place as well. So it makes those a little bit more versatile than the MXDs. Okay, so there are a couple of things that you need to remember when you're looking at importing your information from ArcMap into ArcGIS Pro. Pretty much anything you create in ArcMap, you can import into ArcGIS Pro. So your MXDs, your layer packages, layer files, map packages, all of those will come directly into ArcGIS Pro using the very similar method to what I just did there. Except, as you saw, map annotation and graphics. If your map document, layer package, map package, layer file has any of those in it, it'll just ignore it. Still bring it in, just ignore that and not display it. Projects, map files, map packages, anything you create with ArcGIS Pro of that nature is not compatible with ArcMap. So I can create with ArcMap, it'll probably come to ArcPro, but if I create it in ArcPro, it will not come into ArcMap. The exception to that being data files. If I create a shape file using ArcGIS Pro, I can use that shape file into ArcMap. If I create a file geodatabase with ArcGIS Pro, I can use that file geodatabase in ArcMap. If I create a DBF table in ArcPro, I can use that in ArcMap. The big exception here is personal geodatabases. ArcGIS Pro does not support the personal geodatabase at all. You can't create them, you can't use them, read them, edit them, anything. So if you create a personal geodatabase with ArcMap, you cannot use that into ArcPro. And if your map happens to reference a personal geodatabase and you try to bring that into ArcPro, it won't like it. You'll get red exclamation points next to the layers in the map, saying it can't find the data source because it has no idea what a personal geodatabase is in ArcGIS Pro. So if you have data in a personal geodatabase, now would be the time to convert that over into a file geodatabase and get it out of that personal geodatabase format, because not only does ArcPro not support it, but ArcGIS Online will not support it anymore. Neither will ArcGIS Enterprise, formerly ArcGIS Server, which also means portal for ArcGIS will not support personal geodatabases. So now would be a good time to to make that migration into a file geodatabase or into SDE Enterprise Geodatabase as well. So there you go. I hope you have found this video helpful as you begin the process of migrating from ArcMap into ArcGIS Pro. Remember, if you need some help, we are here. eGIS Associates can help you with that migration if needed. We can also assist with other services related to GIS, enterprise implementation, systems integration, application development, strategic planning, training support, and so on. So, feel free to reach out to us. You can contact us at www.egisassociates.com or give us a call here in the U.S. at 678-710-9710, or even shoot us an email at info@egisassociates.com. Please remember, if you like this video, it helps you out, give it a thumbs up. Make sure leave some comments if you have any other ideas for future videos. And it doesn't have to be how-tos. If there's anything related to the GIS profession, professional development, anything that you'd like to see along those lines as well, let us know, and we'll see what we can do for you. So with that, hope you have a great day, and we look forward to talking to you again in the future.